Welcome, my name is Ricky, and today we're going to be comparing my old Athlon 845 with my new Ryzen 1300X. However, it might be more apt to think of it as a comparison between the new Athlon 950 Bristol Ridge processor and the Ryzen, since the 950 is basically the 845 but with all the AM4 goodies, like faster RAM and having a clear upgrade path to Ryzen down the line. For this test, we are going to be looking at 3 of the most CPU-intensive games I own, and we're only going to be concerning ourselves with CPU usage, frame rate, and probably most important of all, frame times. Each system had 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the same GPU, my 2 gigabyte Sapphire Radeon RX 460. The 845 was clocked to 3.8 gigahertz, and the 1300X was clocked to 3.6 gigahertz, both CPUs' respective boost speeds, with no additional overclocking. First up is Fallout 4, a favorite of mine, but is quite CPU bound. For this test, I started at the Old North Church at night and headed to Diamond City in as convoluted a way as possible. Boston stresses the CPU fairly hard, giving us a worst-case scenario for the game. The Athlon averaged 41 frames per second with a low of 15. The average max CPU usage was 87%, and the overall average was 84%. The Ryzen averaged 59 frames per second with a low of 49. The average max CPU usage was 81%, and the overall average was 76%. Here are the frame time graphs with the spikes representing stutter. Some of the stutter can be chalked with the GPU, but the Ryzen was quite a bit smoother. Next up, Hitman. I chose the Paris map because all those people densely packed in is a CPU nightmare. I did the same opportunity for each test where you trigger the fireworks and push Dahlia onto Victor. The Athlon averaged 45 frames per second with a low of 30. The average max CPU usage was 96%, and the overall average was 94%. The Ryzen averaged 60 frames per second with a low of 55. The average max CPU usage was 73%, and the overall average was 70%. Here are the frame time graphs. Again, some stutter can be attributed to the GPU, but Ryzen has far less stutter. Finally, Fortnite Battle Royale, a game that I've already made a video about in regards to CPU usage. It's hard to get even remotely similar test runs for each system, so I just took the data across a few matches each. The Athlon averaged 58 frames per second with a low of 42. The average max CPU usage was 72%, and the overall average was 70%. The Ryzen averaged 60 frames per second with a low of 54. The average max CPU usage was 60%, and the overall average was 54%. Here are the frame time graphs. Interestingly, Fortnite looks to have only just slightly less stutter on my Ryzen than on the Athlon, but the larger frame times aren't anywhere near as large as they are on the 845. Perhaps this is an unfair test. The advancements AMD made with Ryzen make it far outpace anything they've done before. At the same time, the 1300X is twice as expensive as the 950. Is the 1300X a better processor? Yes. Is it a must-buy? That I can't answer. It depends on your budget and situation. If you can't swing Ryzen now, it might be worth it to wait and save up, but it also might make more sense to buy the 950 now and wait until Ryzen Gen 2 or even Gen 3. All I can say is that I don't regret upgrading, but I'm not everyone. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.